Alright, let me do a video. You see my car parked down over there? This is where I live, and sometimes I park and rest and then I do my walk. Sometimes you see me make videos on that side, and so I'm going to talk a little bit. Because I sat there for maybe 30 minutes just resting before I started to walk. When I got out, as I'm walking, quarter of a mile, half a mile, there's a white undercover vehicle. It's fine, they use those, I understand. They're quite obvious. Tinted windows beyond it. But it's parked. It's not parked where I'm at, like behind the white stripe. It's parked right here, blocking the road. All the way from me leaving the car, which is fine. Now I'm doing my walk, and as he's parked like in the middle of the road right here, obviously he's somewhat of a traffic hazard. I think he's coming around right now. And then all of a sudden, as I'm doing my walk, then he turns his lights on. Sort of like intimidation thing. I knew it was an undercover cop at that moment. I knew it. But then when he passed, I knew for sure. Of course, if he turns his lights, that's fine. I'm just walking. Then he comes up and passes. I see it's undercover cop. Say, what did he do wrong? I just simply told my friend, one of my friends for me yesterday, they said they'd kind of been following me a lot, which is fine. I went to another Walmart. Sometimes people use intimidation. And now I'll talk about some of the local that I wasn't going to discuss a whole lot. All I could honestly say is that where the city, according to all of my previous posts, we had a local doctor about 8 months ago. His name is Jaime Sandoval. Tragically, sadly, he was indicted on 3 felony assault sex charges against his patients. Now, there's also another one in the media on the same thing. Now, this man, Mr. Sandoval, according to the police reports, and then according to the indictment, he digitally penetrated these 3 female patients. That was the charge, sticking his fingers inside of them in a sexual way and so forth. And, it was a big thing, of course, made it into the news. The other big part of Mr. Sandoval, Dr. Sandoval, was he fled the country. He had a thing on his leg, and I believe he's from somewhere originally South Central, Latin America. But either way, he fled. That was a big thing. They finally caught him and brought him back. They didn't bring him to Nueces County or Corpus Christi, though that's where he was indicted. They brought him, I think, to Houston to make sure it wouldn't happen again. Came back to Corpus Christi. It was also reported that one day he drove his vehicle into one of the prosecutor's vehicles there by the courthouse. So 3 days ago in a local media, this is a big case. He's being charged with felony sexual assault of 3 patients. But about 3-4 days ago, the media came out and said they went before the judge, Missy Mederi, and the assistant prosecutor for Mark Gonzalez in his office, Angelica Houston, and they basically told the judge they had to drop one of the charges because they looked at all the police reports, all of the interviews from one of the victims, and she never said that he did that. Pretty big thing that the police had a report that he sexually assaulted them. The DA's office indicted that he did that. And then when they looked at the interviews, it wasn't a he said, she said. It was she never claimed that happened. So they dropped that. That was big news. Okay, today in the news, it happened to number 2. Once again, the DA assistant DA went before the court, said they looked at the second one, what the police report said, what the DA's indicted on. She also never said that happened to her. Now, there's one more left. I don't know what, but the judge, I think Missy Medary, said, how did this case ever even get indicted? Meaning it looks like it's either gross incompetence, whatever side you would blame, whether the detectives lied, whether the DA's office lied, they all accused this doctor 3 times of sexually assaulting 3 separate patients. And in the actual statements from the patients, the victims, they never claimed that. Now, I don't know what's going on here. The reason I turned it on is because the incident I just told you. Now, if it wasn't someone like myself, that I'm not engaged in criminal activity, and you see me walking and you park in the middle of the road, and then you turn your lights on, sort of like, run. That's what they're saying. Run. Of course, I'm not that type. And then he was like mad. It was a cop. You could see the dark tinted windows. What the public asks is for you to simply do your jobs. Now, there are 2 cops that are facing criminal charges in Corpus Christi. I spoke of the one previously, Tommy Cabello. He lives in Robstown, but he's CCPD. He's been indicted, felony indictment. He's still going to go to trial. Look, not in a negative way, my advice to Tommy Cabello would be to do, a plea, because he could get prison time. I understand his main concern. That officer, Tommy Cabello, I think he was with the department like around 20 years, CCPD, and he's kind of had maybe a history of this before it came out, domestic violence. But the thing they're indicting him on are 3 charges, but they're felonies because it's witness tampering with a witness, and all those things are high crimes. And I recognize that more than likely what happened was when he put his hands on his wife, which is wrong. Then he told her, this came out actually in the media, he said, tell him, it didn't happen and all. Okay, I understand that's all considered intimidating witness, and all those things are wrong. I think the best, he doesn't want to lose his job, okay? He's going to probably lose it. But I think almost if the DA could simply do a plea bargain, in the sense he would still have to plead to one of the felonies, which I'm sure he doesn't want to do, then he would lose his job. That would probably be the best. I don't think any of these people were intended to have lives of crime. Now, the other one was a little confusing at first. Her name is Norma De Leon. She works for the Corpus Christi Police Department and was a 10-year veteran. And when the media first reported that she was indicted also on a felony, it said for misrepresenting a public servant, pretending to be like a cop. That's normally what those indictments are. And that didn't sound right to me, because she's a cop. But what she did was, according to the media reports, the boyfriend she's going out with, his mother hasn't seen the grandchild. Okay, it was like a family thing. And the grandchild, I guess, is living with the grandpa. And so it was like the girlfriend, who's the cop, and the boyfriend said, I want my mom to see the grandchild because she hasn't seen him. And maybe there's a dispute where she's with the granddad here in Corpus. So she pretended to be a CPS worker, Child Protective Service. Showed up at the house, said this is a welfare check, but she also called 2 detectives with CCPD for them to, back her up. I guess they didn't realize what was going on, the other 2 cops, but she was the senior officer on the scene, 10-year veteran, knocked on the door and, made it look like it was a welfare check, that she was with CPS. She was in civilian uniform, so she lied. Why did she do it? According to the report, she then went and said, "Where's the child?" And then she took the phone out and let him talk to the grandma on Snapchat or something of that nature. Grandma got to see the grandson. All right. She's now indicted on that, okay? That's the second officer right now before Nueces County. Yeah. In her case, it's sad to lose your 10-year, time that you put in. I did 25 at the fire department. I think it would be best to also do like a plea where she resigns. They investigate these. They're both still police officers until either there's a plea bargain or something like that happens. But I think for her, it would be best just to accept, again, a resignation type of a thing. I understand that these people, these acts, in her case, it was maybe something she tried to do as a favor, and she never thought. What I would like to peer into is a little more deeply of the issue of why do some of these officers, not all of them, why do some of them possibly have that type of a working belief that they might get away with a certain thing? What you then look at is the culture of the department itself. From reading the local news a lot, which I read, they just graduated another rookie school of police cadets, I think 70-something. And I think what really, to me, it shows, not that you would blame the police chief for everything that goes on, but you look at maybe there was a culture, that there were other things that people felt like they could get away with because they were cops. I was going to bring this up, but yesterday when I was on the other side of where I'm at now, I had a friend, and I've had this happen many times, but he talked about his past times he did wrong. But when a CCPD, according to his testimony, and look, I heard this so many times, but a cop rolled up on him once, years ago, pulled out a bag of drugs. Look what I found on you. Now look, I've heard the same thing from multiple people over the years, all right? So the cop would, of course, arrest the person, and if they have a history, the cops get away with it. But I've heard this story before, and my friends don't realize how these affect me, or maybe they do. He said that he had a court-appointed attorney. Look, and I've heard this with other people. And he told her, he said, look, the cop pulled the bag out, and the court-appointed attorney, said, well, who do you think they're going to believe, you or the cop? Now, I don't know if he did 2 years on that or 3 years on that. To me, what it shows is a huge problem. A huge problem. That undercover cop that was just sitting here, maybe he looked at my vehicle when I parked, which I did earlier, but I was resting. If I don't feel good, I just lay down for a little bit in the car, but then I want to do the walk. But then he's right in the middle of the road, which you're not supposed to really be in the middle of this road, which is down there. And I could say, it's very obvious for me to spot the car. And then I guess he thought, as this guy's walking, which is me, I'm gonna show him. Now I'm doing a normal walk for the high taxes I pay in this city. So as I got closer, then the lights came on, just the headlight. Now why would the headlights have been off the whole time? And then they come on. Then zooms past. The tinted windows were very dark. So that was a CCPD vehicle undercover. Can we ever get them to do their jobs in the city? Probably not. The bag of drugs that my friend recounted, will they ever stop that? No, they never will. They never will. So for the public domain, you say, then what's the answer is you don't locate a business in this city. You have this doctor. Now say if somebody said, we want to start a practice in Corpus Christi, and we had 3 patients, according to the police reports, according to the DA's office, all 3 accused sexual felony assault of a doctor, meaning sticking his fingers inside of them, sexual nature. And then, when you reviewed at least 2 so far out of the 3, they never said it. They never claimed it. And that was nothing that they ever said he did. And yet, you're still seeking to imprison him. Now, who would bring the practice to the city? Do you not think that such incompetence, negligence, and criminality affect this illustrious place? Do you not think that whether it's a person struggling with addiction or whoever, that your kids might relocate here and go to the campus, A&M, and say if they get pulled over one day by an illustrious officer, says, look what I found on you, sweetheart. I'm studying, get in the cop car. And then she would what? Tell her court-appointed attorney, well, he planted it on me like he did the other one, Jesse, and this one, and that one, and the hundreds. And then the court-appointed attorney in this corrupt place would say, who do you think the judge is going to believe here? Oh, I'm sorry. And then you're from Ohio, you're from New York, you're from New Jersey, your daughter went to college here, 6 years, we're giving her 6 years. She'll ever get out of Texas. Now, what do you think that gives as an impression to our city? There's many more I could talk of. I figured I would just do that update because this has been going on for about a week now. I took the ride yesterday, day before. I told my friend Rampant all the way to the Walmart on Greenwood, all the way on the other side of town, about 17 miles that way. And undercover cop. The vehicles are noticeable. Unmarked vehicle. Followed me off the highway fine. So I turned into Walmart. I'm not running away. That's where I was going. Turns in. And I usually park not next to everybody so I could walk. So by the garden center. So then he just passed me by. I guess it would have looked too obvious for him to park right next to me in the open area. I shopped. Hour and a half. Coming back, the area behind me again. So he waited, what, an hour and a half? Let me ask you. How much money are we paying you guys for this? For Miss DeLeon. And look, there's much worse than the Norma DeLeon. Okay? There's much worse than the Tommy Cabela living in Robstown. There's much, much, much worse than that. I was walking on that side maybe 2 weeks ago. I mean, yesterday as well. And the water was low. I walked. I saw a carcass just because the water was low. It was very deteriorated. I couldn't tell if it was a human carcass or an animal carcass. But as I walked past it on that side 2 weeks ago, I just thought, but even if it was, what if it was something that was done in a manner that was called, we refer to as corruption, then even if they came and got the body, you'd never see a report on that. Which is sad. Which is sad. So this is the little update. I'm working on some new things and we can work on the new side. And so, that's it. And I held back. I didn't talk about it, But like I said, it's just parked right there in the middle of the road. Of course, who else would park in the middle of the road causing a traffic hazard unless they were a cop? But it was the mindset. As I kept walking, he figured he'll see me. This citizen will see me and know that we are out. And of course, I just kept walking. Then the lights, just the headlight, they're on. Run, son. So what? You can blow my head off? Do you believe they would do that? Yes, I do. I believe that corrupt cops would blow my head off illegally because they threatened others and committed acts of violence on my friends with a history. a history of it. A history of it. Acts of violence that were reported, documented, and when it made it to the upper echelons, they left their asses off. Welcome to Corpus Christi, Texas.